You want to listen to a podcast?
By who?
Georgia GOP Congressman Doug Collins.
How is it?
The greatest thing I have ever heard in my whole life.
I could not believe my ears.
In this house, wherever the rules are disregarded, chaos and mob rule. It has been said today, where is bravery? I'll tell you where bravery is found and courage is found. It's found in this minority who has lived through the last year of nothing but rules being broken, people being put down, questions not being answered. And this majority say, be damned with anything else. We're going to impeach and do whatever we want to do. Why? Because we won an election. I guarantee you, one day you'll be back in the minority and it ain't gonna be that fun.
Hey everybody, welcome to the Doug Collins Podcast. Glad that you were with us. Thanks for all the fill-ins last week. I appreciate it so much. As I was gone, I've been away with Air Force duties and stuff over the last little bit, so I was glad to have some new voices, new freshness here on the show. Glad to appreciate that happening as we go forward. Got a big week this week. I'm going to give a couple of things. Also Friday, I'm going to pre-warn you. Friday, we got Chan Gailey, the coach, is back. Going to be coming back in, hopefully with me, Chip, and the Friday Finest gang, James, and all, as we dissect round one of the NFL draft. Can't wait to get that going. But a lot's been going on. I want to touch base on some stuff this morning, some political stuff. I know that a lot of you have been focused on what's going on in Congress, or really what's maybe not going on in Congress. Break that down a little bit, break down a few other things with the Trump trial and things going on. We'll be ready to have that right after the break. See you on the other side.
Hey, folks, when you look out and you see the country and just the disarray it is, you see the Biden administration, you see the wholesale prices have just went through the roof again. Inflation is tearing us up. If you have your finances all impinged in just a few areas, if you're just in stocks and bonds and you're not diversified, I got some news for you. You need a navigator. You need somebody to help you get to where you need to go with those finances. And I can't think of anybody better to do that than my friends at Legacy Precious Metals. You need precious metals in that portfolio. You need gold and silver. And Legacy Precious Metals, the folks there, they're the navigators. They know how to deal with tough times. They know and how to look ahead and take your personal situation and make it something that can be workable for you in the long term, because that's, at the end of the day, that's the one you're most concerned about. You need to make sure that your personal finances and your retirement are secure. You need folks like Legacy Precious Metals helping you in that. They will take the time to learn you. They'll learn your finance. They'll learn where your investment goals are, and they'll help you get there. And metals and gold right now, in this kind of crazy inflation, in this kind of crazy economy with the Biden's economy, is just, you need that help. And Legacy Precious Metals is the one to do that. So give Legacy Precious Metals a call, 866-528-1903, 866-528-1903, or you can always visit them online at legacypminvestments.com. And you can download their free investor's guide. Legacy Precious Metals, they're the ones you need. They're the navigators to help you through these turbulent times.
You might have heard Mike Lindell and MyPillow no longer have the support of the box stores or the shopping channels as the way they used to. They've been part of the cancel culture, so they want to pass the savings directly on to you by having a $25 extravaganza. When Mike started MyPillow, it was just one product company. With the help of his dedicated employees, they now have hundreds of products. Some of you may not even know about that. So to get the word out, I want to invite my listeners to check out the $25 extravaganza. 2-pack multi-pillow use My Pillows are just $25. My Pillow sandals, $25. There's 6-pack of towel sets, $25. Brand new 4-pack dish towels. You guessed it, just $25. And for the first time ever, the My Pillows with all new Giza fabric, just $25. All orders over $75 will see free shipping too. This amazing offer won't last long, so go to mypillow.com and use the promo code Collins, that's COLLINS, or call 800-986-3994 today. That's promo code Collins. All right, let's get started. Today is Monday. I wanted to break down a few things for you. Let's just start off this. Today is opening statements in the Trump hush money trial. Even a Democrat broke this down pretty good the other day. And Norm Eisen, who I had to deal with in the first impeachment, the sham impeachment that they dealt with, really this comes down to, is this a gross violation of the tampering with an election or trying to cover up some election from a federal election standpoint? Or was this something that, frankly, was nothing. I mean, I think that's sort of the basis of the way you look at this. And this is the made up case. This is, I mean, from my legal perspective and others in this, is just a made up case. This is one in which Alvin Bragg sort of, forced upon the world. He's now got to defend it. He's going to have a jury that is very sympathetic. We've already seen how the jury selection has gone up there, and we have a judge who seems, again, as we've seen many of these judges in New York, seem to be more concerned about their own style on their moment of stage than they are actually in enforcing law. This is one, and again, trying to break this down a little bit for you, and we'll start here this morning because it is unprecedented. It's the first time a former president has been on trial in a criminal case, or any case for that matter, as you look forward to this. And it goes back to money that was paid to Stormy Daniels to keep quiet, and about an alleged affair. Now, there's going to be lots of discussion on, was this about the campaign? Again, the hypocrisy of the Democrats on this is stunning to me. Every campaign does its best to keep what would be bad press out of the press. Okay, it happens in every campaign. What has been said here, by the way, let me just temper this, is that I do not believe this was anything close to election malfeasance, misappropriation of funds, anything else. This is just not that. And again, this is not about the issue of an alleged affair, not an alleged affair, whatever you want to call it. This is, Stormy Daniels, Michael Cohen, and then the famous Michael Avenatti is coming back in this, it looks like, as well, who was her attorney. This is about a DA who is using the law to go after Donald Trump. Because remember, the FEC found no violations in discussing this when it was looked at on the federal level, where this is actually the underlying crime of falsifying business records, that it can only be the felony if it is predicated, if you falsify a record predicated under committing an act of a criminal act. Okay, they're saying the criminal act was violation of the Federal Election Code. The Federal Election Commission has already said, no, there was no violation here. So frankly, we're just making this crap up. Okay, that's just sort of the way this is going. Now, there's nuances to this case, and I'm not about to go into every nuance or other that Alvin Bragg or others may say, but that's the heart of the case right there. Michael Cohen was the president's attorney. They had this situation going on. You're going to see a lot of this over the next few weeks. The biggest issue, I think, that has come up in this trial, and I haven't had a chance to talk about this, but after seeing a little bit of the jury selection last week, was the realization that this is what the Trump campaign has been discussing as far as election interference. Because this is a 4 to 6 week trial, possibly, in which Donald Trump has to be there. It's not an option for him to unlike the civil cases, this is not an option for him to be there or not be there. And the judges made it very clear, and again, this is where, let's just be brutally honest here, this is normal in a criminal proceeding. Okay. Now, there are some issues of travel that Donald Trump is able to travel with the private jets and everything else, a lot more than you or I could. Probably during the midst of a trial. So I think, the judge is sort of overextending himself as far as not letting Donald Trump do, like is thrown into doubt going to Barron's graduation or going to the other places. But this is going to take time. So during the day, as while this trial is going on, Donald Trump is going to be in a courtroom, and which means he's going to be in New York, and that makes it more difficult to campaign. And this is exactly, I believe, what the Democrats had won for. This is why these cases took so long. Remember, this has been almost 4 years. I mean, this case in particular has been years in the making. In fact, Alvin Bragg's former the district attorney before him chose not to prosecute this case. He only sort of picked it up after some wayward ADAs up there decided that they felt bad because it should have been prosecuted, and they were mad because it wasn't. Again, all of this going on right now in the midst of everything else in the world. So we'll keep a running watch on this as we go forward in the trial. But opening arguments start today. We'll sort of get a picture, and then we'll also see who the first. Again, this judge is just being unbelievably, in my opinion, biased in this case and not putting, and allowing the DA to get away with a lot of things they normally would not be allowed to get away with. One was the Trump attorneys asked who's going to be the first ones called. This is normal practice in criminal practice. For those of you out there, maybe lawyers who are listening to this or not, you have an understanding between the prosecution and the defense side that, these are the ones we're going to be calling. Here's sort of the order we're going to be looking. So really you have a smoother process. This is something that gives me a jumping point here. I have a lot of people out there who just say, well, I'll be my own attorney. I don't need an attorney. I can go to court and I can argue myself. No, the reason you have attorneys many times is not that you don't think you can do it yourself, not that you can't argue the truth yourself. It is to keep the process moving, and also not that you miss, so that you wouldn't miss anything that could end up hurting you. I see this all the time, and I've seen it in court time and time again, where people come up and they have issues against themselves, criminal charges ranging from battery to domestic violence to DUIs and everything else. They say, well, I'll just represent myself. And then they try to get into a bench trial, or they try to get into a trial, and they end up basically messing up their own case. And this is something that many times you don't think about, is the efficiency of the court, how the court is run. In this case, this is why the lawyers in these cases, very good lawyers for Donald Trump, has asked, just say, look, give us your play, give not your necessarily what your playbook is. We sort of know where you're headed, but who are you going to be calling? They asked for that last week. The DA said no, because they use the intimidation factor of Donald Trump's Twitter presence or social media presence. And the judge basically didn't do anything about it. So again, these are the things that are building up in this case, that are just, I think, making more and more Americans, frustrated with a process that doesn't seem to be fair. And again, yes, Donald Trump is a different defendant than we normally see. He's a sitting former president. He's a very popular former president. He's the Republican nominee for president in this cycle in a very close race with Joe Biden. And all of this is just equaling out to where people believe that more and more that this is just simply an election year interference tactic to keep him from winning. Now, we'll see how it plays out. I mean, we're still a long way away from a judgment in this case. We're a long way away from appeal in this case if it does go against Donald Trump. And even if it doesn't go against Donald Trump, I could see Alvin Bragg appealing this as well. So a lot left to go here. I'll just leave it at that at this point. We'll break down more in depth as we go through the week on the podcast. Let's move to one of the big events over the weekend, and that was the House voting on Saturday to pass a series of spending bills that designated $95 billion in foreign aid to Ukraine, Israel, and Taiwan. 3 separate bills. They were all then merged together. I think it didn't go down very well to people that $60 billion of that went to Ukraine, while $17 billion went to Israel, $9 billion for humanitarian aid, $8 billion to support Taiwan. They also passed a bill banning TikTok. Now, we haven't had an episode here on the Doug Collins podcast about TikTok. I will promise you one coming up if we work on this in the future, but this has become the problematic issue on the Hill. TikTok is a little different. Huawei, which again is sort of interesting. When Huawei was basically, kept out of the U.S., banned from the U.S. Over 5G technology, nobody really understood. Nobody really cared. TikTok, they do, because you have all these TikTok followers who are and TikTok performers and influencers and however you want to call it, who only want the likes and only want the influence dollars that they get from TikTok. And they're not concerned about what TikTok's company is actually doing with data that is collected from their platform. Again, we'll get into this in more at a certain point, but this was also added to this process. Now, they passed with bipartisan majorities on both sides. However, it is interesting that this was basically could end Speaker Johnson's speakership if Democrats do not come to his aid. Why is this important? Now, let's break this down. And Joe Biden himself has been a part of the problem here with Ukraine. And again, there's also a problem when you have the open border situation that we currently have. I understand completely the argument of why are we sending, $60 billion to Ukraine, which is about 13 or 14 billion, and that'll be spent on, basically the guns, bullets, things like that. Most of which will be bought from the West, us. And that so is the money from Israel. A lot of that is just turned right back around and funneled right back into the defense complex here in the United States for missiles and the missile protections and stuff that they have. What they don't understand is why we're able to spend $60 billion on Ukrainians' border and not anything on our border. This has become the real crux of the left. This has become the problem. I think if you're honest with yourself, no one wants to see Russia invade a sovereign country, period. And the question is, how do we fight back? And I agree, Europe ought to play a bigger role here. Europe is playing a role in this with refugees, with other things. But as far as, if you're sitting there a country over from Ukraine and you see Russia invading Ukraine, where's the European response here? And again, nobody wants to broaden this out. This has become the actual, and you hear this in Israel and the Israel-Iran issue, which I've determined I'm calling the Iran attack on Israel from a week ago the O.J. Simpson attack on Israel. It was like a slow-moving Bronco riding down the Santa Monica freeway or whatever the freeway it was when O.J. was they were trying to get O.J. to turn himself in. I mean, it was like, here we're launching all these things, but we're letting you know 2.5 hours in advance, and ended up shooting down 99% of them. Yeah, the problem has been developing is that nobody wants to increase the fight, so to speak. They don't want to enlarge the battlefield or enlarge the hostilities. At the end of the day, the question that I ask many is are we as a world, and I say world, all of us involved, willing to come to a peaceful solution to the Ukrainian situation in which basically you give Russia whatever they have right now? I'm just asking the question. Because if that becomes the standard, then where is it not the standard anymore? And is it only because of countries who don't have a mutual aid agreement or treaty agreement with the United States or others that we basically say, well, sorry, but if another country invades you, it's not our problem? I understand the argument from Americans who say we don't want our young men and women killed in those. As a member of the military, I get it. But my question is in these engagements, are there possibilities and is there the room here that these engagements are making it more difficult for our military in future conflicts? You now have Turkey hosting Hamas leadership. I mean, you have Yemen and the Houthis. You have the Hezbollah in southern Lebanon. You have Iran now actually, although very pitifully and just just a sad state of affairs in Iran. If that's the best the mullahs, these religious zealots over there have to offer in trying to attack Iran, and then when trying to attack Israel, and then Israel responds, I think Iran needs to take a step back and say, maybe we're not ready for prime time. Now, granted, they have a lot of equipment. They have a lot of people, and they're a dictatorship in the worst kind of way. And they will gladly sacrifice Iranian people for their twisted ideas. So you can't not take them at least seriously, but you can also say that Israel and others have done a pretty good job, especially when Jordan, Saudi Arabia, Britain, us all helped in defending Israel from this barrage of missiles and drones. In Ukraine, you have the sort of the same iteration here, and the same issue is nobody wants to confront Vladimir Putin, who is a despot who is living in backwards looking thinking of the 80s into a time in which he longingly looks back to Russia as it used to be in the Soviet Union. The question comes is what is providing the materials for Ukraine to fight their own war? Is that the biggest misuse of tax dollars that we have? Now, again, this is all under the highlight. I really would wonder if this was a different story to some of these who voted no. And I'm just asking again, if some of you may be very upset with me right now, and that's fine. You can email me, DougCollinsPodcast.com, hit the email button, tell me all about it. But I'm asking honest questions here. Are you willing to live in a world in which countries can overrun other countries based on military might and power, and there be no consequences? And we're not getting into whose country's better, whose country's not. It's not what I'm saying. So I did have one thing, though, and Mike Johnson, who has been on this podcast before, who's been, and we've talked about many, many issues over time. It really did concern me, though, last week, his rationale for then going ahead with the monies to the Ukraine, that he was worried about his son, who's going to the U.S. Military Academy, and how this war may look. Now, in one way, he's looking forward, and I appreciate that. The other way is I was on military duty last few weeks, and when that statement was made, I talked to several military officers who felt it be a slap in the face. Because no matter what goes on, if the president of the United States or Congress decides that we are going to fight in some other country for whatever reason, our job, the job of the men and women who go to our Air Force Academy, our Naval Academy, our Army, West Point, and all these others, their one and only job is to defend America and to fight our wars, period. End of statement. It's not to go get a nice pilot's license. It's not to go, enlarge your education. That's all fine and good. But at the end of the day, these are the men and women who we ask to fight and win our nation's wars, period. And it's hard. And sacrifice for what has went on over the years. But right now, if you're more concerned about your children not being involved in war, which is a valid argument, I'll just say it rang a little hollow for men and women in the Air Force and Army and Navy who are already engaged in conflicts all across the world. We need to figure out what we're going to do and how we're going to do it. And that's why the Biden administration has been so abjectly pitiful at foreign policy, and have put our men and women in uniform in bad positions. And so, again, as you look at this, I really wonder, as I started to ask the question just a minute ago, if the border was completely secure, would this have been a bigger issue, or would it be as big an issue? Maybe it's a better way to put that. I don't know. Because that's the overriding discussion right now, without dealing with the real issue of Russia and Ukraine, or Israel and Gaza, which, by the way, Israel needs to just wipe out Hamas, period. I mean, I'm tired of the Hamas sympathizers here in the United States and these, who are willingly anti-Semitic here in this country being coddled and protected and trying to force Joe Biden, which they have done a very good job of, into protecting terrorists. Plain and simple. This is, you go back to October 7th, that is Hamas. That is Hamas. And the people of Palestine have voted for them, they've supported them, and they've allowed them to basically butcher their own country or their own territory, not country, own territory, at the expense of the people living there. And then while they let their leaders live in luxury in Qatar. Again, can't make this stuff up. But I think at some point we're going to have a bigger discussion about world events and world priorities. And I think that's one of the reasons Donald Trump saw 4 years of no one doing the stuff that we're seeing right now, is because they didn't know what he would do. He would respond. Joe Biden is under the Obama philosophy of basically American apologism and apologies instead of American exceptionalism. And I think those are the big thing. And if you don't believe that the Democrats have sort of just went overboard on this Ukraine, I don't even think they understand the issue. I just think they think it's a political issue between them and the Republicans. When the vote was over, they started waving Ukrainian flags on the floor of the United States House. That's disgraceful. Just plain and simple disgraceful. So the country is settled in a sense of this very murky future that we're looking at. In an election year in which you have multiple independent candidates, Robert F. Kennedy Jr., you have Jill Stein, you have others, you have Joe Biden, you have Donald Trump, you have the Trump trials that are going on, the other cases that are still out there. Donald Trump's case goes before the Supreme Court this week on presidential immunity. You see a lot of things. And then you see this vote in which over the last little bit, Republicans especially have become more and more divisive with each other. They can't pass anything on their own. They can't come up with anything. I'm not going to get into my rant today about what they could have done to possibly leverage the power that they do have. They chose to use the leverage to fight each other and to call each other names. You know, so the old saying, I can't fix what they don't want to fix. And if they don't realize that together they're better than they are apart and willing to find compromise that works, then you're going to continue to see this. And that's sad to say. I hate it for my colleagues because I know many of them, and I talk to a lot of them all the time. They really, truly want to get stuff done. But when you have some who will not compromise, who will not even come to the table, who basically say, I can get everything I want, when they have one body of three that actually deal in making something law, and they don't compromise on anything, you get what you get. And I think that's where we're starting out on this Monday. Lots to talk about this week. Like I said, though, a lot of good things that I'm excited about. Got a big show on Friday with Chan Gailey and the rest of the Friday's Finest crew. Be back with you again on Wednesday. Right now, go out and have a great Monday. Look forward to talking to you soon. Thanks.